If you're still playing on your PS4 and you haven't upgraded to an SSD yet, you need to do it, and I'm going to show you how. Hey everybody, it's Chris from Family Geekery, and today we're going to be upgrading this PS4 Slim, the CUH2015 model, and we're going to take out the old hard drive and put in a brand new SSD. SSDs are getting so cheap, and you can get small ones, you can get large ones, all for relatively cheap, so there's no reason to keep playing one of these with your old hard drive in it. Let's get an SSD in here and speed it up. So the process for doing this is relatively easy, and it's something that Sony actually tells you how to do. So they've got a website that kind of talks you through it, but not many pictures, so that's what this video is for. And so you're not going to be damaging the hardware at all. You're not going to be voiding your warranty of any sort. So let's go ahead and see what we're going to need to do this. Of course, we're going to need a PlayStation. This happens to be the Slim model. If you've got one of the older Phat models, I've got a video on that one also. I will link that in the description below. But besides that, you're going to need a small Phillips screwdriver. You're going to need, obviously, a brand new SSD of some sort. It doesn't have to be brand new, but a new SSD of some sort. Any size. You can do 500 gig. You can do 1 terabyte, 2 terabyte. And then you're going to need a couple USB drives. You're going to need at least one USB thumb drive to install the new software on there. And you're going to need one kind of USB drive to back up all your data. Now, depending on how much data you have on here, how many games, how many saves, that's how you have to determine what size of drive. I don't think there's not much on here, so I think I'm going to be able to do it with just a thumb drive, like a 64 gigabyte thumb drive. If you've got a bunch of games and a bunch of saves, then you might want to get like a USB hard drive, like a 500 gig or 1 terabyte hard drive, and it just depends on how much you're going to back up. If you don't need to back up anything, maybe you just bought this on Craigslist or Marketplace and you just want to put a brand new drive in it and you don't care about what was on there, then you can even skip the second drive. You just need one. So to get this done, there's 3 basic steps. One is you have to back up all the data, like we talked about, back it up onto a USB drive. Second step is actually physically removing the old hard drive and putting in the new one. And then the third step is restoring the system software on here, plus restoring any of your saved data. So that's the 3 steps. So let me go ahead and get this thing hooked up to a monitor. We're going to start with step 1 by backing up all of our data. Alright, so we're ready to back up our PS4. So a couple steps on this. The first one is you need to sync your trophies. If you care about your trophies, you need to sync them to the PSN, because the backup process doesn't actually put these onto the hard drive. They need to go actually to the PSN network. So we're going to go up to our trophy setting here. And this is just a dummy user. See, I've just got a dummy user here, so I don't really care about these trophies. And if it's not a PlayStation account, then you can't back up your PlayStation trophies, obviously. So if you had an actual PlayStation account here, a PSN account, then you'd be able to do this. And by doing this, you hit the options button, and right here there would be another second setting that says sync to PSN, sync trophy data to PSN. Now we're not seeing that here because, like I said, this is just a local user account. So once you get that done, once you're sure that your trophies are sunk, then you're good to go. We're going to go over to settings. We're going to scroll all the way down to system, and then we're going to scroll down to backup and restore. So this is going to back up and restore the PS4's data using a USB storage device. So I've already taken my first USB drive and I've plugged it into the PS4 here. And once I do this, once I go into the backup, it's going to give me a couple warnings. So hit backup PS4. The first thing it's going to say is, hey, these other 2 users, or these users that are on this PlayStation, their data hasn't been backed up to the PSN. Now I don't care. We don't use these other accounts anyways, so I'm not going to worry about that. So I'm going to hit yes on that. If you actually need to back that up, then you would obviously back out, log into those accounts, and then back up their data. The second warning here says that the backup data for this user cannot be restored on any other PS4 except for this one. So because this user that I'm logged into right now is not a PlayStation PSN account, it means that I can't take this data, put it onto a thumb drive, and bring it to another PS4. it can only be restored to this actual physical PS4. And that's fine too, because I don't care about this data anyways. But if this was yours, and maybe you have a PSN account on there, and maybe one of your family members has just a local user account, just understand that this could only be used on this particular PS4. Which again, for this application is fine, because all we're doing is we're upgrading the hard drive in this PS4. We're not moving this data to a new PS4. So I'm going to hit yes on this. Now once you do that, it's going to calculate how much stuff you have on here. And I've deleted out a lot of applications to make this smaller and quicker for this video. So it says I've only got like 7.5 gigs, and I'm going to have 52 gigs free on this 64 gig drive. Now like I said, if you had GTA 5 and a bunch of other games on here, this may be 300, 400 gigabytes worth of stuff. And if that's the case, then you'd need a drive big enough for that. So you'd probably have to have an external USB drive, 500 gigabytes or larger, to back up all that data. In this case, I've just got a couple games, and it's going to fit on this little thumb drive just fine. So once I'm ready, I hit next. You can change the name of this if you want to. I'm just going to leave it default, and it tells me it's going to be about 7.5 gigabytes, and I'm ready to go. Hit back up. It's going to restart the PS4, and then it's going to start backing everything up onto that drive. Alright, so the PS4 is rebooted, and now it's starting to back up. It's going to give you an estimation here, but don't worry about that just yet, because it's going to figure out how long it's going to take. It may start off with some crazy number to begin with, but it's going to start copying everything over to the drive. This is going to obviously vary on the size of your backup, how many games that you're backing up, and the speed of your USB drive. So I'm going to go ahead and let this copy over, and I'll be back when it's done. Alright, so now the backup is complete, and it says it's going to restart the PS4. And after the restart, that's really all you need to do to back it up. So now we're just going to make sure that we shut the PS4 all the way down. So let's go over to power. And instead of going into rest mode, we want to go down to power options. And we want to turn off the PS4. This is going to turn it off all the way so we can take it open and get that old hard drive out of there. So let's shut this down. And we're ready to swap out that hard drive. Alright, so we got the PS4 all powered down, unplugged all the cables from the back, all the stuff from the front, and now we're ready to take that old hard drive out. So let's flip this thing around. So if you bring it around and look at the back side of it, right here is the hard drive bay. So all you have to do is really just grab this and kind of push it to the right, this cover. And once you push that out to the right, that cover comes off and exposes that screw. So this is a screw that's holding the hard drive in the side here. So that's the first screw we're going to take out. And it's just a Phillips screw. It makes it nice and easy. And don't lose that. Just put that to the side with the cover here. Now if we look on the side, there's going to be a little pull handle here. We're just going to grab that and pull the hard drive straight out. Just slide it nice and easy out. And we can put the PlayStation down. And now if you look at this, there's your spinning hard drive, and it's just held in by 4 screws, 2 on either side. So I'm going to take these 4 screws out, and we're going to mount the other drive in, paying attention to the orientation of the connector, because obviously when you slide it back in, it's going to have to mate up with the inside. So let me take these screws out, put the new drive in, and I'll be right back. Alright, when you take the old hard drive out, you'll notice there's some little like rubber grommets on each of the screw holes. Make sure you don't take those out or lose them. I'm sure that they're there for, vibration control on the old spinning drives. Less important on an SSD, but still, go ahead and leave those on there. And then you put the new drive in and put the screws back in. I'll be right back. Alright, once you do that, there's a couple things to note. One is the depth or the thickness of this drive is not as thick as the caddy itself. I'm sure they built that to allow for some bigger drives. So if you just lay this thing in here before you put the screws in, you'll notice a connector is actually going to be blocked by this metal shielding here. So make sure that you do lift it up a little bit to get the screws in. Once you match up all 4 screws, it'll lift the drive up. You can see that little gap right in here. It'll lift it up enough that this connector will obviously make it past this metal piece here. So that's one thing to note. The other is I'm using a 500 gigabyte PNY. You can use basically any brand, any size. I'm just using 500 because this isn't my main PS4. This is just going to be a secondary one. So I'm not worried about, you know, installing a bunch of games on it. It's probably going to be a bunch of family games to play, some couch co-op or something. So any size you want. I'll put some links to some of the bigger drives that I've used in the past down in the description below. So now this is all ready to go. We're going to slide this back into the PS4, put the screw back in, and then get that little plastic cover back on. So when you slide this in, make sure you remember which way it was facing when you pulled it out. So we're going to slide it back in gently, and when you do get it in there, make sure that you do feel somewhat of a positive connection there to the SATA connector in the back. So just make sure you do push it in all the way before you get that screw in there. So now we're going to put the screw back in. And that's just going to keep that hard drive from backing out. It's going to keep it pushed into that connector to keep it from sliding out this way. And that's it. So now we just put the cover back on and we're ready to get the software installed. That was easy. Alright, so now that we got the old hard drive out and the new hard drive in, what do we do with this old hard drive here? Now remember, this has everything on your PS4 that you had before you did anything, so just set this to the side just in case anything goes wrong with this process, which it shouldn't because it's a pretty easy process. But just in case, you can always slap this back in here and it's just like it was when we started. So I usually take a Sharpie and put on here, you know, PS4 original drive, and then just set that up on the shelf somewhere. So the next step is going to be going over to my Windows computer, and we're going to create the thumb drive that's going to put the system software back on here. Now this is different than the thumb drive that we used, or the USB drive that we used to back up all of our games and our saves. This is going to be a second one. It doesn't have to be very big. This one's a 64 gig. It can probably be anything 8 or 16 gigs or larger. And we're going to pop this in my Windows machine. I'm going to step you through installing the software onto the USB drive.
Alright, the next thing we need to do is get our thumb drive ready for the update file to reinstall the PlayStation software onto the PS4. So I've got the web page right here, right at PlayStation.com, that has the download for the file, and I'll put this link to this section right here in the description below. So you're going to download this file. It's about 1 gigabyte, and you're going to grab your second thumb drive, or whatever thumb drive you're going to be using to install this, and in that thumb drive you want to create a folder just called PS4. In that folder you need to create a folder named Update, and then in that update file go ahead and drag that file that you just downloaded. So this is the file that I just downloaded. Now I didn't mention before, but the formatting of both of these drives that we're going to hook up to the PlayStation, they need to be either FAT32 or exFAT. Either one will work. So this one is set up as exFAT. So I've dragged that on here. I'm going to eject this disk, and then I'm going to bring it over to the PlayStation to install the new software.
Alright, so now that we've created this USB drive that has the system software on there, we need that because obviously we put a brand new hard drive in here and it has no operating system on it at all, so that's what we need to get on there. So here's the drive that we just made in Windows, and you can do that on Mac also. You just use disk utility to format the disk and then just copy that file over the same way. So I've got that plugged into USB port. I've got a controller plugged into the USB port because we're going to need that. I think it's going to forget the wireless connection that we had before. So now the next step we have to do is boot this PS4 up into safe mode. So to do that, we're going to hit this power button and we're going to hold it down until the second beep. Once we hear that second beep, we're going to let go and it's going to boot up into safe mode. So here we go. There's the first beep. There's the second beat. Let go, and this should boot up into safe mode. Alright, so now it's booted up, and it wants us to connect that DualShock that we have already got hooked up. So I'm going to hit that home button, and the only option that we have here is initialize the PS4. That's going to reinstall the system software. So let's go ahead and hit X on that. It says connect a USB drive that has that update file. Now depending on when you download this, it may be a different version than that, but this is the latest one that we have. So we can go ahead and hit OK on that since we've already done that. It's going to look for that drive, make sure that it's on there, and make sure that it finds that update drive in that correct folder that we set up. And once it finds that update file, it says the PS4 is going to be initialized, all users and data will be deleted. Are you sure you want to do this? Now obviously we just put a brand new hard drive in here, so there are no users or any data. So we're going to go ahead and say yes on that. And now it's going to initialize the PS4. It's going to get ready to update the software and copy it over. And after a quick little reboot, now it's ready to start installing the software, and then it's going to restart after that. Alright, and after a couple quick reboots, it is all done and it's booted up to probably the same screen that you saw when you first bought this thing in the first place, when you first took it out of the box. So now it's basically brand new, but maybe even a little bit faster than brand new. So we've got one step left after we step through setting up the PS4, and that is to copy our data back over. So let me get to the PS4 home screen, and then I'll step you through copying our data. Alright, so here we are at the PlayStation home screen, and I've taken the update USB drive out, the one that we used to install the system software, and I've replugged in my backup drive, so the drive that we used to back up all of our games and our settings. And so now we're ready to head on over to the settings, scroll down to System, we're going to go back to Backup and Restore. And this time we're going to restore the PS4. So on my USB drive, I've actually got a couple backups from a couple different systems. We can see that this is the newer date, so this is the one, the 7.5 gigabytes that I did today. So I'm going to select that, and it's going to say the system will be restored with the backup data. So let's go ahead and hit Restore. It's going to say the PS4 will be restored. After restoration starts, the PS4 will not return to the current state. Are you sure you want to continue? So it's going to overwrite what it is right now, but right now it's just brand new anyway, so let's go ahead and do that. And now it's going to reboot, and it's going to start copying those files over. Alright, so after it rebooted, it's preparing to restore. And now it's going to copy that same stuff that it backed up before back over. So this is going to be, again, depending on the size of your backup and the speed of your drive, this may take a different amount of time than this one is. But I'm going to go ahead and let this copy over, and I'll be back when it's done. Alright, now it's copied over. It's going to restart the PS4 again. Welcome back. Now it's all done, and I can see that the game that I had on here before, this Don't Starve game that I had copied back over, is back installed on there. So it's all done. Looks like everything worked just fine. So that's going to wrap it up for this video. I hope this helped you out in some way. If it did, give me that thumbs up. If you like this type of stuff and you want to see more content like this, go ahead and hit that subscribe button so you don't miss anything. Like I said, this is a quick and easy process to get this going and get rid of this old spinning drive, get yourself a new SSD in there, speed things up, and still keep loving this PS4. There's still a lot of life left in this console, even though the PS5 is out. There's still lots of games that are still only playable on the PS4. So might as well keep these things around and keep them running fast. So thank you as always for watching, and until next time, peace out and geek out.